Hey, welcome to No Filters. I'm Rhonda. I've mentioned before that I have a kidney transplant and I have these side effects from long-term medication use, and this kidney disease that I have is part of this syndrome. And one of the aspects of the syndrome caused me to lose my hearing when I was a very young girl, 7, and I got my first hearing aids when I was 8. And of course, I went kicking and screaming because it just didn't go with any of my outfits. How could I need a hearing aid? But obviously, I couldn't hear in class. I misunderstood. My family was moving to Camden, Arkansas, and I heard Canada. Maybe it's because that was the only I had to associate it with. But whatever. I wasn't the expert, so I had to get a hearing aid. And it was a novelty item. It was the first thing I reached for every morning, the last thing I did at night, because once I got used to it, I could hear, and it was so nice. Think of if you've worn hearing aids, the first time you get them, you're like, oh my God, this is so different. Or you put on that first pair of glasses and you're like, hey, the trees have leaves. Who knew? But one time in particular, this was years later, and I was still wearing the same, it was big behind the ear hearing aid, and they would just change the mold in my ear as I grew. So the mold would just kind of fit, and the little tube would go into the big microphone and the I guess the sound enhancer. So I'm wearing this, and I was not allowed to get them wet. You couldn't bathe in them, you couldn't swim in them, and we spent our summers at the local pool. My mom, me, my sister, every kid in the neighborhood, all the moms, everybody, was out there at the pool. So we go to the pool one day, and I always wear my hearing aid, but I always take it out before I get in. And the pool is a screaming area anyway, so I didn't have any trouble hearing. So first thing I always like to do, run off the diving board and jump in. So that's what I did. I put down my stuff and I ran off the diving board. And as I was jumping in, I realized I still had my hearing aid on. So I went in the water and back up going, Mom! And I dog paddled with my head above the water as quickly as I could to the ladder, got out, ran to my mom. I got my hearing aid wet. Oh no, doom and gloom. And I knew it was going to be, I was going to be punished for it because I should have known better. I mean, I was 10 at the time? You should have known better. So my mother, once again, practical, not one to stray from, the path of let's get this fixed. She had some tissues and somebody had some Q-tips and all this stuff. And so while I went and enjoyed what was probably most assuredly to be the last day of my life in the pool, my mother dried out my hearing aids, took the battery out, cleaned it real good, cleaned everything, dried everything with a little Q-tip, because it was big enough that you could kind of get in a little battery hole. It was probably the cleanest that thing had ever been, even from the factory. And lo and behold, if it didn't work perfectly. So I dodged a bullet that day because my mom was able to clean my hearing aid. So I was back to good and off living my life. But I tell you, that was about the only time I think I've ever gotten my hearing aids wet. Now, of course, the technology has evolved to, I can probably go into outer space or deep water, no problem. But back then, and those were expensive, so I got to live another day to be me. If you like my content, please like, follow, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.